Greetings! I am Herbert Erpaderp, and today I'm going to assemble this plastic 28mm scale M3A1 half-track made by Warlord Games for bolt action. I did recently build Warlord's resin Hetzer and it was, let's say, not quite up to par. But I wanted to show that their plastic stuff is actually quite good. The back of the box shows us a couple of painted examples of the model, an image of the included decal sheet, and a couple of paragraphs about the half-track and its roles in the war. Inside the box we find two sprues, the first of which contains the tracks, most of the external hull parts, and a bunch of other details. The parts all look very neat and don't have much in the way of mould lines, though they will need a little bit of cleanup. The other sprue contains the frame of the half-track, a lot of the interior parts, and even more details, including a driver figure and some external stowage. Have I mentioned that I like it when models come with stowage? Also included is this sheet with a series of instructional exploded diagrams. It is clear enough, though I think it would be nice if the parts were labelled in some way. And finally, the decal sheet. These do look pretty good, and there is a nice variety of markings. Let's get to building this thing. I started by assembling the driver. The exploded diagram would have you glue him in during the first step, though I think that will make him annoyingly hard to paint, so he's going to be left out and painted separately. Assembling the driver figure is easy. Start by gluing his torso to his legs. I didn't bother cleaning up the parts other than his helmet and parts where the arms join the body because they're unlikely to be visible. Position and glue the arms in such a way that it will look sensible when you glue the steering wheel into place. Gently place the steering wheel into place and then glue the head on. One driver ready for action. Bolt action. Sorry. I then put him aside and begin work on the half-track itself. I start by gluing in the internal passenger compartment wall. This is a little bit tricky because there isn't really anything to guide it. It should be flush with the rear of the base part like so. Next, I glue the exterior hull part on. I do this before the glue on the internal part sets so that it can be moved if needed. It does have a couple of tabs to help position it correctly, but it's still quite tricky. I used the hull rear part to make sure I had the other parts on as close to correctly as possible. I checked the fit of the forward end with the appropriate cab side part. Next, I work on the tracks and wheels. They both have mould lines. On the tracks it will mostly not be visible, but they will be quite visible on the wheels, and so they need a little bit more attention paid to them. This is just a simple matter of scraping off the mould lines with your knife. Then I glue the tracks to the lower frame part of the half-track. These parts go together very easily. And now for the wheels. These are slightly more complicated to attach. Start by gluing on these suspension things. They should be placed such that they protrude a little bit beyond the front of the frame part. I then glue the wheels to the axles. This could be done after gluing the axle to the frame, but I chose to do it this way for no particular reason. The wheels fit to the axle slightly loosely. Not sure if that's by design, but it allows you to position the wheels to look like the half-track is steering. I then carefully glue the assembled axle and wheels to the suspension, and then I gently adjust the wheels so that they aren't facing in random directions. I then glue the passenger compartment assembly to the lower portion of the half-track. It's a good idea to hold the parts together while the glue sets to avoid any gaps. Next, I add these rack things to the side of the hull. I'm not entirely sure what those are meant to be in the racks. These parts do go on in a specific way, so be careful with them. One part has a vertical support bar which should be in the middle. The other part that goes next to it has no support bar. You can see they fit together quite well. I then glue the rear of the half-track into place. This part doesn't quite fit perfectly. I think this is mainly because I didn't get the sides on perfectly either. It was a bit of a tight fit, and I had to hold it in place while the glue set, otherwise it would have popped out of place leaving a huge gap. You can see the right rear corner of the half-track is not quite perfect. It's good enough for me in this case though. Next, I glue in this dashboard wall part. Make sure it lines up with the floor of the driver's cab, otherwise the walls will probably not fit very well. Then I attach the towing hook. The protrusion on this part should be facing downwards. Make sure you don't push the part all the way into the hole. I then turn my attentions to the front of the half-track. I glue on the sides of the cab and engine compartment. The parts seem to fit okay, but not 100% perfectly. I then test fit the engine compartment top part, or roof, I guess. It's always a good idea to test fit the parts before gluing. I just don't show it every time. I think it should be obvious anyway. The part can then be glued into place. Check both sides for gaps and hold the parts together as the glue sets to prevent any gaps from appearing. The part doesn't seem to fit perfectly, but it's not bad. Now we need to fill in this huge gap in the front of the half-track. I glue in this part with the armoured radiator grille coverings. Then we have a decision to make. You can either have this part with the winch, or a roller. The roller comes as two pieces. I've chosen the roller for the simple reason that I think it looks more interesting. First, the bumper thing is glued into place. The recesses to glue the roller into should be facing downwards, and then the roller part can be glued to the bumper. It goes like this. Ready to roll. No, I'm not sorry about my bad jokes. Next I add the machine gun ring. This part is optional, but I think it looks better with it. Start by gluing in the support pole for the gun ring. I carefully put the ring part into place. It doesn't really have anything to guide its positioning, so I do my best to get it on straight. If the support pole isn't already in contact with the machine gun ring part, gently push it forwards so it is. Now to add some more detail parts. I started by gluing on the jerry cans that are located on both sides of the cab. Be sure to put them on straight. Next, I glue on this box, whatever it's for, on the right hand side. I then went to add the armoured cover that goes over the windshield. The tab things along the top didn't seem to do much other than get in the way, so I trimmed them off. I then glued the part on. You can build this to have the armoured covers open, but I prefer the way it looks in the closed position. Next comes the headlamps. These simply slot into these convenient holes. They also come with little guard parts that were quite difficult to clean up. I left them off until later so the glue holding the lamps could set first. I then add stowage. There are 2 of these rolls that are curved so they fit nicely onto the front mud guards, so I glue those into place. Then I glue the 2 included backpacks next to each other on the left side of the hull. You can place these any way you like really. There are also 2 helmets to use as stowage, but I've left them off for now. I'm not entirely sure if I will add them later. Next, I went to add the 50 caliber machine gun. Of course I broke the part when trying to clip it off the sprue, and only one of these parts is included, so be careful with this gun. I did manage to glue it back together, but it's never going to look perfect once it's broken. Hopefully this piece stays together during painting and later when I use it in a game. Undeterred, I carry on and glue the ammo box to the side of the machine gun. Unfortunately, it does have a sink mark. I'm going to have to fill that with green stuff. Then, the handle can be glued onto the rear of the machine gun. This part was quite fiddly. I've never seen this as a separate part for a 50 caliber machine gun this small. I do kind of like it though. I then glued the machine gun into the ring mounting and carefully rotated it around to a position I was happy with, doing my best not to re-break the gun barrel. Finally, I added the protective frames that go in front of the headlamps. This was quite fiddly and annoying to do. I kind of wish I'd just left them off. And that's it. One completed M3A1 Halftrack. I did manage to sit the driver in his seat. It was fiddly and I forgot to film it, but he can be put in and removed with a little bit of effort. I'm not entirely sure I will actually keep the driver in when I paint this Halftrack. He seems to sit up a little bit too high. I'm not sure that's right. It looks odd to me. Other than that though, I am quite satisfied with this kit. There were some annoying parts to assemble, namely the passenger compartment, though it wasn't anything too terrible and it otherwise goes together without any problems, unless you break the parts. I recommend you avoid breaking the parts. The instruction leaflet is clear enough, though it would be improved if it and the sprues had some kind of labelling. All up, this took me roughly 50 minutes to put together. That's 50, not 15, including the time it took to remove mould lines, test fit the parts, and glue everything together. I probably could have done it quicker without a camera in the way. In any case, it isn't a race, and you should take whatever time you need to build the model properly. I think this model looks pretty nice. Nothing to compare it with at this time, but the Rubicon M3A1 Halftrack is on my list, so I will compare those 2 models when I put that one together. Stick around for that if it's something that interests you. I'm not entirely sure how I want to paint this model. It will be usable for American, British, or Soviet forces. I'm most likely going to go with the Soviets though, largely because there is so much room on the side of the hull for Soviet slogans, and that's always fun. I hope I have shown in this video that despite Warlord's resin and metal Hetzer that I assembled the other week not being particularly good, that they do still make some good models. I think it might be comparable with Battlefront's models. Their plastics are also far better than their resin and metal offerings. I hope this video has been interesting or helpful for you. If you've got any questions or comments, be sure to leave them in the comment section below, or if you prefer, on Facebook or Twitter. You can find links to those in the video description below. If you've not done so already, it would be rather excellent if you clicked subscribe and checked out some of my other videos. I have a whole bunch of cool miniatures stuff coming up, so stick around. Thanks for watching. Farewell.